Okay, so we're going to have to hit a break. Before we do, and before we hear more of the cross, I want to actually turn over to our guest right now. I'm joined once again by trial attorney Oscar Michelin and also trial attorney Bruce Rosenberg. Bruce, welcome to the show. Let me start with you real quick. What was your takeaway from that testimony? Because that really just hits the heart.
Well, thank you for having me. It impresses me that the witness is actually sharing his true feelings of what happened to him and how real the effects of the false information were. So I think that it's tremendously powerful testimony, and we'll see how the defense tries to rebut it in cross-examination.
All right, that's what we'll see. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll be live with the cross.
Why is everyone talking about navage and nasal irrigation?
I am one who suffers from chronic sinus.
So that has to be laid.
I agree. So
You were sitting for the trial, correct?
yes.
You've seen the video of Mr. Jones saying they're coming for our guns in hours of your son shooting.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
Objection. He hasn't established his man.
So right now we know that during the trial he saw that video. So
We
that
saw the video before this trial, correct?
I may have. I honestly don't recall.
At any point did you become aware that Alex Jones believed that the Sandy Hook shooting was a pretext for coming after the guns of the American citizens? Objection.
Overruled.
So when did you become aware of it?
I couldn't honestly tell you. I don't remember exactly. At some point when I started becoming aware of what was being said and what he was saying, it became clear that that was part of this.
So, Bruce, they're hearing this playback of the audio recording, the tape, really the cross-examination by Norm Pattis. What's your take on how far Pattis should go in terms of questioning Mr. Wheeler?
Well, I agree with Oscar in the sense that I think it's fair game that he's trying to show that there are other sources of the issues that the witness has faced, meaning that when you get into what's the cause of the damage, that affects the amount of the damages. So I think that he should push as far as he can to distinguish, when he became aware of the video, as well as his position on the Second Amendment rights. I think it's very important.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we're probably going to see more of these arguments outside the presence of the jury. They just went on a 20-minute break. We'll see what happens next. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back, everybody. So they're officially in a break right now in the Alex Jones trial. There was just a hearing outside the presence of the jury between the attorneys and the judge regarding how Norm Pattis, the attorney for Alex Jones, is going to continue his questioning of David Wheeler, who was just on the stand, one of the plaintiffs in this case, who lost his son in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting, and talked about the pain and distress that he and his family suffered as a result of Alex Jones making comments that Sandy Hook was fake and staged and there were fake actors. Oscar, I do want to ask you this. We do anticipate the testimony of Alex Jones later on today or tomorrow. I mean, that's basically determines how long today is going to go with the other witnesses. What can he argue? I mean, what can he legitimately argue as a defense? Because as we know, he can't argue that he's innocent. He can't argue that he didn't intend to defame or anything like that. He can't argue he didn't profit off of Sandy Hook. Based on what we're hearing so far from the plaintiff's case, what would be a legitimate argument for Alex Jones?
From his testimony, the best that he could do is that he wasn't the only person saying this, that information about this was out there that he might have seen from other sources, that Jones himself might have seen from other sources, that he was just trying to, I guess, exercise his First Amendment rights to free speech as the opinion, and that he never meant any direct harm to the people involved. That's going to be a hard sell, because you heard him claiming that this person, Mr. Wheeler, who just testified, was actually an actor and playing two roles. I mean, it's such a stretch. I mean, the other issue is how does this message resonate with millions and millions of people who follow Mr. Jones's website? And I think that's something that he's going to have to answer for there.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's what leads me into this. Yesterday, we heard the testimony of Clint Watts, who's this expert in social media, basically in terms of, this is somebody who is an expert in national security to the extent that he was tracking how terrorists recruit people across the world and was tasked with understanding the way that Alex Jones was engaging with audiences, how a message can be spread and followed. Let's listen to this.
Personality of the messenger matter in these analysis?
Absolutely. In many cases, particularly in the social media era, the messenger is more important than the message oftentimes. If you have an audience that comes to you for a message over and over again, you'll be able to push many messages because they have developed a very tight relationship with that messenger. So if they are exciting and charismatic, or if they speak in a way that communicates to the target audience, and they can do that in a repeated way, the audience will come back to them to try and get some sort of ascertain what the truth might be.
Okay. And is building trust a part of an effective messenger with
Yes.
their audience?
Yes. As a messenger, you want to build trust with the audience. If you're wanting to sell a product, you need to have the trust of the audience in order to convince them to buy a product. Or if you want to shape what they believe, you need to build trust with them as well, so that they will take your version of the truth as a messenger into that audience space.
And does the degree to which a messenger builds trust with the messenger's audience, no matter how many millions of people those are, factor into the effectiveness of, for example, selling products?
Absolutely. That's why you'll see oftentimes that if a company is trying to sell a product, they will have testimonials from messengers or people that have used the product. That is trying to build a trusted relationship. Or they'll do it for experts of various different types that might relate to a product. So if it's a healthcare product, they might have a doctor. If it's a car mechanic, they'll probably be talking about auto parts.
And just going back to demonization, you talked about talking about an example of Russia, telling false narratives about mothers killing children or something like that.
Yes.
Does that have, Your Honor? If there's an objection, what's the?
Yes.
So Bruce, this is important to understand here, right? I mean, the question is, how was it possible that so many people believed this Sandy Hook conspiracy story? You're getting a sense of it. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think the point in the testimony is how these stories get amplified. How phone tag, you repeat something, influencers, social media, it's becoming more and more influential and important in our society. And I think that establishing the fact that Mr. Jones had a platform to amplify and to repeat, and as you have repetition, people tend to believe more. They want to believe more, and then they want to support. And then he would seek to sell products through the same platform. And if they believed him as a reliable source of information, then they're going to believe him as a reliable source for the purchase of products. And so I think there is a connection financially to what Alex Jones was doing. And I think how things are repeated and amplified and influencing all plays into it.
And let's just actually continue this a little bit, because I think he was a really important witness. And he talked about Jones's behavior falling into the context of this messenger's personality. Let's take a look a little bit more of his testimony.
So, for example, slowing down into slow motion, very slow motion.
I can't see the witness.
So, for example, slowing down in very slow motion, the speech or the address of a grieving father in the aftermath of his son's death, so that can be used to promote a false narrative. Is that right?
Correct. It can change what the context of the event is, or how people understand what actually happened.
Okay. And that can be done is that sometimes then done to stoke fear, anger, demonization of the target?
Correct. You can use any of those techniques in video to change the context of people's understanding, their perception of what actually occurred.
And when you are using these emotions, fear, anger, demonization against a target, do you have experience does that expose the target to increased risk of harm?
It does. If they have used information to change people's beliefs or perceptions, it will lead them at times to pursue harms against a target. If someone's been demonized, they could be the target of something under circumstances where the factual understanding, the real reality of what actually happened is changed, which leads them to do things they might not already consider, meaning they heard a call to action they were told that something occurred because of a reason that is false, they may undertake an action because of that.
And have you observed and examined how these types of narratives lead to harassment in an online community?
Absolutely. The range is everything from harms against children. It can be involved in terms of criminal activity, mobilizing people to target an individual under false pretenses. Governments, foreign governments against the United States have used it to actually try and convince people of things that aren't true, to build anger within a population. And then I think the one consistently through my career is extremist, meaning that terrorist groups use this sort of information manipulation and make people angry to pursue things as a target.
As far as these three are concerned, is it? Can you tell us whether the more powerful and the message is conveying fear, anger, demonization, the more exciting, charismatic, bombastic, emotionally driven the messenger, and the more effective the medium, video, logo, the branding, what does that say?
Graphics.
Cutaways.
Graphics, cutaways, and embedding
emotions.
of other media inside.
Okay, and the more that saturates the public, the greater the potential for things like harassment, threats.
Correct.
See, I think that's a pivotal witness to call, particularly after what we heard from Brittany Paz, the corporate representative, and also before we hear from Alex Jones. What was your take, Oscar?
I think he's by far the most important witness that the plaintiff has called. He makes that connection and explains to the jury how these type of outlandish stories that, used to be in those rags by the supermarket checkout. I had Elvis's alien baby. That's not the case anymore. Social media and carefully crafted messaging now finds the audience that it's looking for and grows that audience by repetition, by these demonization methods, where these outrageous stories now fall on ears that are open to listening to them, that are believing them, and that cause damage to people defamed by them. I think he's really the most important witness the plaintiff could possibly have in a trial like this.
All right, let's take a break.